Hi there everybody, this is David, and I've just got to say this year has been great for RPGs. For the most part, we've gotten really spectacular things, but as we all know, with the good also has to come the bad. So today I'm going to be tackling both extremes and talk about the 5 best RPGs come out this year, but also the 5 worst RPGs that came out this year, and I definitely do think that's worth a sub as you come and you join my party and you level on up with me. Thank you so much for your sub, your like, and your hype. It just means the world to me. Y'all are just the best. And now let's get started diving into the absolute garbage, because we're doing the worst first, that was released this year. And we're going to be starting all this off with the Front Mission 3 remake. This here is the kind of disappointment that hits harder the more that you love the original. I came into the game hoping for that perfect blend of nostalgia and modernization, you know, the ideal remake where you feel like you're a kid again. How Square could take 2 strategy RPGs that were both released on the PlayStation 1 and then treat one kind of like it's God's gift to mankind, and then the other one like a red-headed stepchild, is beyond me, but here we are. This whole remake feels like it was outsourced to someone who's only seen like Front Mission screenshots on Google or something. All the environments are clearly done by AI, the character portraits look like mobile games, and then there's a lag too. Every single mission feels like it's moving in slow motion. Then there's the UI, which somehow manages to be both cluttered and also uninformative. Like the game actively does not want you to understand how its own systems work. Not to mention the plethora of bugs that popped up in the remake that were not in the original game. It is just such a letdown for what could have been such a great remake. The combat itself has not been tightened at all, turns take forever, the camera stuttles like it's on a dial-up modem or something, and nothing about this remake captures what made Front Mission 3 so special in the first place. The tension, the customization, the weight of the story and the campaign. This here is the definition of a passionless remake. It's a zombie. It's a familiar shape, but an empty soul. Number 4, Trails Through Daybreak 2. Kondo himself has said many times that the Trails team over at Falcom is suffering from major burnout, and I can definitely believe that after having played this. I can actually feel the creative burnout oozing out of the screen. It's like the developer said, ugh, screw this. They looked at the code of the first game, hit copy and paste, and added a couple of deaths for shock value, then just left for lunch. I adore Trails, you guys know that I adore Trails, but this just doesn't do the series justice. The story just keeps like wandering around in circles and you have to keep replaying the same stuff over and over and over again. That's not compelling gameplay, that's boring. Entire quest chains just feel like padding. Characters just stand around repeating the same revelations that we already learned like 2 hours ago, and then the story just keeps trying to convince you that something's happening, but nothing actually is. It's like the game is stuck running on a treadmill rather than actually getting to the point. Nothing really happens, which just sucks, because you can see the pieces of a good Trails game hidden under all this bloat. A couple of the character arts hit decently, and the combat is still great, and the world building is there, but it just never goes anywhere. Like, how do you have the first game give you 7 pieces of the Genesis, and then the next game just give you 1? I can't wait to take a rocket out of Calvar next year. Hopefully it'll shoot me on back into a good Trails game. Number 3, Varley. Where do I begin? First of all, this abomination is by Fu Ryu, so it already has a strike against it. Secondly, it's from the creators of Monarch, which also sucked, so there's strike 2. And finally, it's taking its inspiration from Persona, but not the good parts of Persona. Instead, the really incredibly monotonous, boring parts of Persona. That's strike 3. Varley, you're out. This is such a train wreck that I spent half my time playing trying to figure out who this game is even for. Just like Persona, you go to a school and it's kind of split in halves with your social school path and then your dungeon crawling half. Too bad it's just all halves boring. You're supposed to be spending your time going through the school and helping people out by collecting likes, but the likes don't actually do anything. It's like one long, god-awful fetch quest, but there's no payoff for it and there's no point to it. Then during the fighting portions of the game, it's no better. All the dungeons are just like long, narrow hallways, and at first it does start off balanced enough, but then you get Aruka, who might as well just be called the win the game person. She's able to heal your entire party as often as you want, every single turn, for free, in perpetuity. meaning that you can literally never die. It takes all the challenge out of the game and any drive that you actually had to complete it, because it just becomes one long, monotonous slog of collecting likes, then going through hallways, and then attacking and healing with her. It's the video game equivalent of an Ambien. Number 2, Death End Request Code Z. This game isn't just bad, it is shockingly bad. It feels like it crawled out of a time capsule labeled PlayStation 3 launch rejects. We knew that we were doomed when the introduction cutscene looked like a PowerPoint presentation, and then the very first battle feels like a turn-based interpretation of watching paint dry. The visuals are ancient, the animations are stiff, and the camera moves around like it's attached with thumbtacks and chewing gum. The writing swings between incoherent and just cringe. The worst part though, the pacing. Every single hour feels like punishment. You're waiting for death to put an end to it. Every story beat feels like a filler arc inside of another filler arc. The game is just desperately trying to shock you with twists that feel like an edgy fanfiction from 2012, and the tone is so inconsistent you can practically hear the developers arguing behind the scenes. The combat is tedious, the progression is unrewarding, and the whole experience just feels so aggressively outdated that it borders on surreal. What am I actually playing? But what really kills it is just the complete lack of momentum. Nothing builds up, nothing escalates, nothing grips you. Every dungeon feels like a rejected prototype, every encounter is a chore, and every story lands like a wet turd. The pacing is suffocating, stretching these thin scenarios into endlessly long soliloquies that test your patience more than they test your skill. Even the edgy Death End gimmick, the one supposed to be sung the point, just is so tacked on and joyless. Why is it even there? It's like the game forgot what made the earlier entries at least, somewhat interesting. By the end, I wasn't even frustrated anymore. I was just tired. Tired of the sluggish combat. Tired of the empty nothingness shock value. Tired of pretending that the plot was ever going to come together. Just tired of this shitty-ass game. And finally, the worst RPG of the year, Progress Orders. This is the kind of RPG that almost maybe sounds promising on paper, and then the moment that you actually, sit down with it, you can feel your enthusiasm draining away minute by minute. It reminds me of when I was a little kid and I got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, and I thought that it was going to be great. I could actually play a game about my favorite cartoon. I could play as Michelangelo. What could possibly be better? Answer? Anything. Anything could have been better than that dumpster fire of a game. And I feel the same way here. The core idea is that you're a guild master rebuilding society through a series of assignments, and that mixed world management along with turn-based combat, and it sounds okay at first, but the execution is so awful that everything is just a chore. The game's structured around these orders, which should be, meaningful decisions that move your settlement forward, but instead they are endlessly recycled variations of the same 3 things: gathering, talking to someone, or clearing out enemies. That's it. And then the resource gathering is especially dull. You aren't exploring any interesting zones or uncovering anything worthwhile. You were sent to the exact same places over and over and over again to get the exact same useless items over and over and over again. And then God forbid you have to talk to somebody, man, they go on about nothing. It's all just busy work disguised as progress. The only progress that I want to do is to progress to a different game. Even worse though, is the combat. It feels like a relic from some bargain basement bin RPG maker game. You repeat the same handful of skills on enemies who never change their tactics, and they barely react to anything that you do. Everything's so stiff, the encounters drag on forever, and none of it encourages you to do anything different. It's just such a chore. It's not there to do anything, it's not there to entertain you. The game is the pacing of a lecture and the engagement of a spreadsheet. This is not fun. It's like the most boring work assignment ever given by your boss. It's horrible. Okay, I'm done. We've gotten the crappy games out of the way, so let's dive head on first into the great games. Starting with Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered. A tale of 2 tactical RPGs, both released on the PlayStation 1. One of them was on my worst list, and this one here is on my best list. Square's Final Fantasy bias is definitely real, I'm just saying. Anyway, Tactics Remastered is exactly what a modern re-release should be. It respects the original in every single way that matters, while giving the presentation a much-needed overhaul. The updated sprites and environments are gorgeous, the remastered soundtrack is a highlight, and every battle feels like stepping back into a familiar, cherished world. Only now you can actually see it the way that it was meant to be seen. What impresses me most is the care shown in the mechanical adjustments, though. They didn't just overhaul the game, they didn't simplify it, they didn't try to modernize it for some mythical modern audience, They instead just kind of smoothed out the edges, clarified the systems, tightened the UI so it finally works with you instead of being against you. The battles run faster, the menu navigation is cleaner, and the job system, one of the finest job systems ever created, finally feels like it has the usability that it always needed to. This remaster is a reminder of why Final Fantasy Tactics has stood the test of time, why it has become a classic, and why no other tactics game has fully captured its particular blend of atmosphere, tension, and narrative ambition. It is a triumph from beginning to end. Number 4, Octopath Traveler 0. To call this a mobile game port is just an absolute insult, because it is nothing of the sort. This pulled off something that I did not expect. It made the Octopath formula feel fresh again. Something that always bothered me with the previous games was that by the time that I finished the 8th story, I had forgotten what happened in the first story. And none of the stories are either really connected either, so it kind of felt like 8 separate journeys. But here, because you follow the villain stories, as well as the rebuilding of your hometown, it is so much easier to follow, and everything's much more interconnected as well. The character arcs feel a lot more focused, the tone is more consistent, and the writing avoids the stops and starts that held the first 2 games back. It is a tighter, more confident entry that knows exactly what it wants to be, but combat is where Zero really shines. Because yeah, those 8 jobs are back, but the only character who has access to the 8 jobs is your main character, who can swap in and out of them, and the other characters that join you though all have set jobs. So you might have 2 or 3 dancers that join up with you, but all those different dancers play differently from one another, which is great because honestly, having all those same 8 jobs was kind of getting a little bit boring, so this is a good trade-off. It's charming, mechanically sharp, and absolutely drenched in atmosphere. Zero isn't just a great prequel, it is one of the best HD 2D titles ever released. Number 3, Trails in the Sky Remake. This is the kind of project that really does restore your faith in the idea of remakes. The original game meant a lot to people, including me. I remember waiting in line outside the GameStop whenever I first moved to Las Vegas to pick it up at 10 o'clock whenever it opened. This here was the foundation of the entire series, the emotional starting point of a journey that has now spanned decades. Instead of rushing it out or slapping a coat of HD paint on it, Falcom approached this remake with genuine respect. The updated visuals are stunning without ever sacrificing the warmth of the original art direction. The environments are just richly detailed, character animations have personality, and the whole world of Liberl feels more alive than ever. But the heart of the Trails was always its characters, and this remake understands that better than anything else. Estelle and Joshua's dynamic is just as heartfelt, just as charming, just as beautifully paced as it always was, only now it's presented with the care and polish that the story deserves. The combat has been refined to flow more naturally, movement feels smoother, and spell effects finally have the impact that they were always meant to have. The pacing remains steady, the writing holds up remarkably well, and every chapter reminds you why the series captured so many players in the first place. This is not just a great remake, it is one of the best games of the year, period. A love letter to fans, and a perfect entry point for Trails newcomers. Number 2, the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remake. There is something genuinely magical about this remake. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 have been remade before and re-released before, but this is the first time in years that it actually feels like it's been reborn. This is my childhood served to me on a silver platter. Dragon Quest 1 was the very first RPG that I ever played back on the NES, and then I remember that I got Final Fantasy in 3rd grade and Dragon Quest 3 in 4th grade, and at that point I had to track down Dragon Quest 2 because I could not get enough of these RPGs. And well, 90% of the Dragon Quest 3 remake did remain the same. They changed up a ton of things in this remake. It is still the simple classic Dragon Quest formula at its core, but it's modernized enough that it doesn't lose its personality. What surprised me most though was just how much they added to each game. The sigils were never in the first game, neither were the fairies or the dwarves or the mini-metals, but now they are, in addition to whole new dungeons and everything else. but they just totally upped the ante on the second game. I mean, not only do you get an entirely new party member, but you get to explore the whole ocean floor. They've pretty much doubled the amount of dungeons that you have to go to. They've added in whole new storylines to towns that never had storylines before, and they tucked in so many secrets, it's just insane. At this point, these are entirely new games, and I'm loving it. It's like I got brand new entries in the Dragon Quest series here. It is so great. And number 1, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This game blew me away. From the moment that I picked it up, I did not put it down. I felt like I was a kid again. I was hooked on it for weeks. I even skipped the gym for a week to stay home and play this game. That's saying a lot. I could not wait to get to new areas and explore new dungeons to see what was going to happen next. The entire world just feels so alive, and the characters felt like real people with real problems and real emotions. The voice acting just absolutely blew me away. I mean, talk about an all-star cast. Then there's the dodge and parry and combat system, which at first I was pretty apprehensive about. I mean, I was good at it when I was a teenager in high school playing Super Mario RPG, but I could never really get the additions down in Legend of Dragoon whenever I played that in college. But here, it's fine, especially as you got more and more accessories that allowed you to customize the combat system more to your liking. And then, there's just something to be said about the storyline. You know, this isn't just kind of like an evil empire versus a good kingdom, or like some little teeny bopper who leaves this tiny village to go out and find himself. Instead, this is a life or death struggle in a topsy-turvy world that no one has ever really seen before, or explored before, and everything is just so new and different. Not only was the storyline completely new, I mean, nobody has ever really told a story like this before, but the world design was completely new too. I have personally literally played hundreds of RPGs, and I've never seen a world built like this. It took everything from the great classics, you know, the world maps, the boats, the airships, the hidden treasures, the super bosses, and it combined that with the tried and true turn-based combat. I mean, normally, you guys know, whenever you see a game that has graphics like this, you look at it and you automatically think, oh, it's going to be some action RPG. But it's not. This is a turn-based RPG, just elevated. This here is what Final Fantasy XVI should have been. Square, take notes, because you've got competition. And that's it for the 5 best and 5 worst RPGs of 2025. Thank you so much for joining me, and now I want to hear what your best and worst RPGs of the year are. Let me know in the comments, and I can't wait to see y'all in 2026. Thanks so much for sticking around with me, and have a good day.